How we doing today, everyone? It's great to see everybody back here again. Today I am bringing you a deck list from OPM called Esper Sisters. It is a deck that once we got the full card list out for OPM, myself and T-Mac and Anto Lullaby have all been playtesting decks. This is the deck I have been putting the most time into. I have about 100 games logged on this, give or take 10 or few over there. I'm very excited to see how this deck does in our meta here in North America, and very excited to see how it holds up in the North American meta and see if it can compete with Purple Code Geass, Blue JJK, Kurapika, and similar decks of that caliber. I want to break down the card choices that I went with today and why I've finalized on kind of this list for now. I may end up changing things in the future, but as of right now, this is the list that I am playing with. There's some things I'm experimenting with, and we will go over those tech choices when we get there. First, today we are playing 11 zeros. We're playing 3 of this Terrible Tornado because it has the get trigger, so it really helps us get the card to our hand, so we need discards later on, or if we need another raid target. Mostly I'm playing this as just the get trigger, so I have another card in hand for the Hellish Blizzard raid that we will go to here in a second. Then we have the Hellish Blizzard. This is just our other zero that's for our raid targets, but it's also a draw trigger, so like I said, cards in hand really do matter with this deck. And so having a draw one, discard one to fix our early hands, but also a draw trigger in life to get us more cards so we can combo more in later turns is very huge. Then I play 4 of this Terrible Tornado. It is our Step Tornado. This can help us get in early chip damage for our setup turns, which is like turn 1, 2, and 3. Usually we're setting up, we're not doing anything really crazy yet. So we can use this to get some chip damage in, hopefully hit a special out of our opponent's life, or force our opponent to do this removal on this if they think this stepping back is going to hurt our energy generation, which sometimes if they do remove this, it does hurt our plays. But overall, we are okay if this dies. It is just there to get some damage in and hopefully make way for some of our bigger, more combo-y turns down the road. Then I'm on 4 of this Hellish Blizzard. This Hellish Blizzard is a look at the top 4, add a 3 or less yellow card to your hand, and then if you added a event, you have to discard the event. If you didn't add an event, you have to discard any other card. So early game, we are using this Hellish Blizzard to find our 3 drops usually, or another 0 so we can ramp up to 3. Once we get to 3, our deck is really online. But if we already have one of these in hand and we already have the zeros to get us up here, then we are just looking for an event to fill our trash. Because if we add an event, it immediately goes to trash, and we will get to why that is really beneficial to us here in a minute. Next, we are on 4 of this 2 energy tornado. This is a active trigger, but it's also a 3-drop 4K body if we use an event this turn. So when we're looking in the hindsight of things, right now this is just our baseline. This is a 3-drop 3K, which is pretty good in our meta early game. It stops aggro, and then also we can make it into a 4K, which having the utility to become a 4K means we can pressure life totals later in the game and force blocks where our opponent would not want to have to lose a body. Next, one of the key pieces to the deck. Alright, this is our color trigger. It's also a Hellish Blizzard. This is a 4 of. I think if you're playing Esper Sisters, you have this as a 4 of regardless. Yes, it is only a 2K and on your opponent's turn, which you have to keep that in mind. Since it is just a 2K on your opponent's turn, it's easily removed. But that's not the real reason we're playing it. The real reason we're playing it is for its win played effect. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal one event card, add it to your hand, then discard a card. This can add our final, this can add our special, this can add any of our tech options for what we're going against. This card does everything we want it to do in this deck by getting us an event. Mostly I am grabbing our specials or our finals. A big one is our finals. because we lead to some crazy combo turns coming up, as we will talk about when we talk about the raid next, which now I'm very excited to talk about. Arguably the best card in the deck, and my favorite card. 4-drop Hellish Blizzard Raid. When played, draw 2 cards. That's already crazy by itself. And then activate main. If on frontline, discard 2 cards from your hand, and you get to pick one of the following. You can add an event that doesn't have a special trigger from your trash to your hand, or all characters on your field gain 1000 BP. So I like the versatility that this has, but I really like the combo potential this card has. We have a lot of turns where we go Hellish Blizzard, draw 2, play some other things, maybe another Hellish Blizzard, draw 2 more. Now we can start discarding, grabbing back a final, play a final, discard, grab one of our other events, play the event. Or if we need, because this is a 3k body, keep that in mind, if we do need the power bump to push through bodies, if our opponent doesn't have any like weenie chumps that we think we can just swing this 3k in, if they all have 4ks and higher, we can discard to buff our board by 1000. Now this is a 4k contesting bodies that our opponent otherwise would not have to worry about losing. Hands down, I think this is the best card in the deck. I really like it because even if you hit it defensively, or if you play it offensively and just put it in your energy line, this is a draw 2. So it's a +1 overall, because you got to think it's 1 card from your hand, so that puts you -1. But when you draw 2, that puts you back up to +1. So it's a +1, lets you dig more in your deck. And if it happens out of life, then that's just a +2. So always look for this card. This card makes the deck go round, in my opinion. This card is amazing. Now our next raid is the 4-drop Tornado. This card, also crazy. So during our turn, if we use an event, it has impact 1. So this is kind of our game closer and our way of winning or pushing a lot of damage early, because we do run a lot of events in this deck. So we will always gain impact 1 90% of the time, unless you forget to use an event. But don't forget, with the Hellish Blizzard, we can always just discard 2 to grab an event back from our trash. So then we can use the event, because if you look at Terrible Tornado, activate main, if on frontline, reduce the AP cost of the next event you would use from your hand this turn by 1. You can only activate this Terrible Tornado ability 1 each turn. So what that means is if you have multiple tornadoes, you can only do the reduction effect once. So don't think you can go activate 3 tornadoes, play 3 things for free. It's 1 tornado per whole turn. It's a hard once per turn. And I love this, because if you have a turn where you go play Hellish Blizzard, draw 2, play a tornado, oh, I have no more AP, I'll discard 2 to the Hellish Blizzard, get back our final, and then now I can activate Tornado. It costs 1 AP less. Play the final. I have 2 AP. I can play even more cards now. I could play another card, go into another Blizzard. I could play 2 specials. I could do all kinds of things. But a big thing you'll see a lot of people do, if you play against somebody who put a big body out on turn 3, you just raid this Tornado, you play our special, you remove their body. We move on. Just getting to play things for free makes this card excellent. Our next is, this is a one of tech choice, in my opinion. This card, I think, is very solid and very good, and can see it being played outside of just a one of. But in my list, I play it as a one of as a tech option. It is a 4-drop 4K draw trigger. We love the draw trigger. Like I said, we need cards in hand with this deck. Activate main, if on frontline, once per turn. Switch one of your active characters on your front line with 5k or less. If you do, choose one of your opponent's characters on the front line, switch it to resting. So this just says, rest one of your guys, rest one of their guys. So it allows us to do, if we have this on the front line, we can go tap Tornado, tap the biggest blocker on your board, or tap something that I can't get through, or something with impact negate I don't like, and then raid into the 4-drop Terrible Tornado. So we just go into this on top of it. So now we may have rested our body, but we turned it back active, and if we have an event, we have impact now. So this is a one of in my deck I've really liked. but it is not as good as the next one of we're going to talk about. The main name of the set, Saitama. This is a one of in my deck because it has a get trigger and it's not really going to the trash unless I discard it. So I just need to see the one. This card is very, very powerful. This is a 5 energy, 2 action point Saitama that plays itself active, must attack if able. So the must attack if able means once you go to your attack step, this has to be the first card that attacks. If you have 2 of these Saitama, you can choose which Saitama you want to attack first. But if you have this Saitama on your board, it has to always be the first thing that swings, and it has damage 2. So damage 2 means it's going to hit your opponent for 2, so either they block or they take the 2. And this is a really big pressure card in our deck because this next line of text. This character cannot be removed from the field by your opponent's abilities. That means character abilities, that means special triggers, that means specials, anything like that. That means they can never remove this Saitama from the board. But there has to be a downside. And the downside is when attacking, this character remains set to resting. The next time we switch, so we can't block with this Saitama. I know I skipped over this middle part. The reason why I did in this version of our deck, this line of text has no effect because we only play one Saitama and it is this Saitama. But if you wanted to play more Saitamas in your deck, activate main, you would place one Saitama card from your hand into the trash, so discard a Saitama. He gains impact 1 until end of turn. So that way you can make him get in for at least 1 damage every turn. I've seen some Saitama builds more heavily on this card. I think it's great. I think this card is overall probably the best card in yellow, if not for... Oh, we have made our things blue. If not for this Hellish Blizzard raid. I think this is the best card we have in yellow. This card is crazy. Drawing 2 and getting this back any event is very good, in my opinion. Alright, now let's go into the event portion of the deck, which is a good chunk, about half of our deck, because we are an Esper Sisters deck. This is an event I wasn't playing at first, but I end up pivoting to playing a one of because, like I said, we can get things back from the trash, and we have a lot of searchability. So this is Let's Go. It's an active trigger, but it also says choose one character in your front line. It gets plus 2,000. So this can make our Hellish Blizzards into 5Ks. It can make Tornadoes into 6Ks. Make Saitama into a 12K if we want. But if we chose a Hellish Blizzard, also gains Impact 1. So when you're looking at this, this becomes a 5K with Impact 1. And then pair that alongside the already, because we played an event, we have a 4K Impact 1. So now we have a 4K Impact 1 and a 5K Impact 1. So having just reusable impact where if next turn our opponent doesn't have impact negate, we just go, cool, draw for turn, AP draw. And then those 2 cards we just got off the draws, ditch, grab back the Let's Go. I have impact again and a 5K body. It's very strong. Now, the card you see yourself playing most is Esper Sisters, namesake of the deck. Literally, this card is a +1 every time you play it. Not only does it have a draw trigger, this card says, look at the top 7 of your card, reveal 1 Terrible Tornado, and up to 1 Hellish Blizzard, add them to your hand. There's no discard, it is grab 1 of each of the sisters. So when you're looking at it, we are on a 4, 8, 12, 16 Tornadoes, and then 4, 8, 12, 16 of the Blizzards. So that means 32 of our cards. We get to look at 7 and pick 1 of each. That's so much value for us. So you'll see turns where you raid into a Tornado. You have a Sisters in your hand. You activate Tornado. This is a free, costs you no AP to get 2 cards out of your deck. Might as well say draw 2. And if the draw 2 gets you a draw 2, then it's a +3. It's so good. And hands down, one of the best searcher things I think we got this set. Now our special. Remember, this is a card we cannot add back off of the Hellish Blizzard, but it is a special that can technically kill almost anything in the game besides a Saitama. It says, choose 1 character with 2k power or less, sideline it. If we have a Terrible Tornado, we add 1,000 BP to this character for each event in our trash. So like I said before, with this Hellish Blizzard that lets us find an event and trash it, this Hellish Blizzard lets us find an event, add it to our hand, then discard a card. This Hellish Blizzard that makes us discard 2 cards. Our trash can get full of events pretty quick, especially if you're playing like Esper Sisters. So in total, you just need 3 events to kill a 5k, 2 events to kill a 4k. But earlier today, we'll talk when we get to the next events down the line. But this, I've even killed 7Ks with this. So this event, very nice, not having a BP restriction, like saying, oh, only a 5K. Letting us kill bigger bodies, always great. I'm on 4 of this card. I know I haven't really got on my nobles because these were 1-ofs. Esper Sisters 4 of this card, since it +1s us, always need max out. Our final trigger. I know other Esper Sister players are playing 4 of the final because they just like to hard draw them instead of getting them back. I feel like we only really need to see 1, maybe 2 finals because how much we're going to loop it later on big combo turns. So I went down to 3 so I could fit in more 1-of techs. Now, this event is another tech event, mostly for the mirror match or for green matchups, green OPM matchups, or like Lancelot. Scary, this is for big boss monsters that you don't want to deal with. So I merely immobilize it. You can only use 1 of these per turn. So that's the only reason why I'm playing 1, because no point in having multiple in my hand because I can only play 1. Choose 1 character on your opponent's front line, switch it to resting. If you have a Terrible Tornado and Hellish Blizzard on your front line, switch it to resting, and it remains set resting the next time it be switch active. So if they hit an active trigger, it doesn't stand up. If they go to their turn, it doesn't stand up. So this lets us tap down a blocker and stop it from attacking. So in the mirror match, it helps us keep this Saitama tapped down so they can never really show us damage to or impact. Because remember, every turn we can go draw, AP draw, discard the Hellish Blizzard, get it back, re-tap down the Saitama. So they never get to block with it, they never get to attack with it. Just keeps us safe. You can do the same to an 8-cost Lancelot, a 7-cost Kurapika, a Sukuna that could have Shrine online. You can literally do this to lock down a boss monster that you don't want to deal with. It's also an active trigger, so if we can target the Saitama, if he's stunned, we can also use him as a blocker. Now, if you're a big One Piece TCG player, you may have heard of a card called Reject. I call this Reject 2.0. 1 punch. 4 energy, 1 action. Choose one of the following. If your opponent has 3 or more life, deal a damage to them. So crazy. Just remember, it does deal a damage, so if they get a trigger, they get to activate that trigger. If it's a special, they could disrupt your board. It's an active, they make the things bigger. Color, and so on and so forth. So you have to be careful when you do this. But this card just dealing a damage from your hand, and at most it can put your opponent down to 2 life. Very crazy. Or we can choose 1 Saitama on our field and it gains impact 1. So remember how I said this activate main we never use because we have to discard a Saitama card? Well, we don't need a Saitama card to give it impact. We have 1 punch, so we can give it impact anyways. It's also a draw trigger, which, like I said, this deck we care about the cards in our hand. But this is arguably probably one of my favorite cards in the deck, just doing free damage in the middle of our turn before we even do our swings, so it makes our math a little bit easier. And like I said earlier, where I said I killed a 7k, I 1-punched my opponent. He plant active trigger to make one of his 4Ks survive, made his 4K into a 7, and then I just said, cool, psychic power. I have enough events in my trash that I can just kill your 7k now. So you active triggered something just for it to die anyways. And I am playing 3 of this. I found 4 was just a little too much because if you opened up like 3 or 4 1-punches, you were like, I really don't need these, and used them as discard fodder. But I feel 3 is a good balance. 2, I felt like I wasn't seeing it enough, and I always want this free damage sometimes, or I want to give Saitama impact. So I feel 3 is a good balance. And my last 1-of, this is a very good card for us. This is the Blizzard Bunch. It is a sight. It comes into play active, which means we can use it the turn we play it. Activate main, switch to resting. Only activate this if you use an event, which, like we've seen, we already play a lot of event cards, so we just have to use an event this turn. All characters on our field get plus 1,000. So that makes our Hellish Blizzards 4Ks. That makes Tornadoes 5Ks. Which, if you think this really matters, because you go, let's go, you can make this a 5K, and now it's a 6K of impact with this stage. This goes from a 4K into a 5K of impact. So let's us get into Kurapika, Lancelot, with impact over typical bodies that they usually couldn't. They didn't have to worry about the damage before. Now they have to worry about the damage, which is very good. I don't think you play more than one of this because you don't need to double buff. Plus, it's only one energy generation. If this had two energy generation, I would play 4 of this card. But sadly, it only has 1 energy generation, so I am only playing 1 of it. So in total, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1-ups, which doesn't seem like a lot because when you look at the 2 events, we can search these very realistically. The Blizzard Bunch, we can search with Hellish Blizzard. So it is searchable. This Tornado is searchable with Esper Sisters, which is crazy. Saitama is really our only non-searchable card in this deck. But the amount of draw we have, there's definitely been times where I've activated this Hellish Blizzard to look for an event, or I've activated Esper Sisters to look for top 7, and I've seen my Saitama in it. And I put Saitama at the top of the stack because I know with another Esper Sisters, plus a Hellish Blizzard, and some more draws from the Raid Hellish Blizzard, I can get back to this Saitama. If you can get it early on turn 3 is what we say. So if you go first, you play a 1-drop. We play Hellish Blizzard, draw discard. On turn 2, you go Hellish Blizzard and another 0, so you play 3 of these. Then on your 3rd turn, you play a Tornado or you play a Hellish Blizzard. Most of the time I'm playing a Hellish Blizzard so I can find either a hero or a psychic power to set up for the next turn. That puts you on 5, you have 2 AP left, you play Saitama on turn 3, you put your opponent from 7 down to 5. Or if you had this Tornado, you've already swung once, maybe twice, because they didn't remove it on their turn 1 or turn 2. So that means going first, you've already put them to 5. Then you step it back, the turn you do the Saitama, they're at 5, you're like, hey, go to 3 or give me a body. If they go to 3, next turn, finding 1 punch is crazy because we can immediately put them to 2, and then that means Saitama from that point on is a must block or they could lose the game. This card is very strong, and the amount of cycling we can get to it is crazy. That's the reason why I'm thinking about going to a 2-of at most, because I still want Sisters to be the main focus of the deck. But I think Yellow Saitama, Yellow Genos is a very scary deck in the same colors, which we might have to come back and look at that. Now I want to talk about tech options that other people play. Some people are playing the Silver Fang. So these are big tech options. The Silver Fang, you get to bounce a character from your field to your hand. If you do, choose one of these abilities. Either you can turn him active or you can make him a 35. So people are using this, like you can play this as a 1-drop and you can return like our Hellish Blizzard to search. We return this Hellish Blizzard. Hell, you could return the raid to re-raid it if you want. Just so you could keep getting their effects again. Which, recursion is pretty nice. In practice, I don't really think it's there because it sets us back a body to do something. This Tornado, Lullaby Anto is very big on this card. I think the way I play the deck, I play it like more of a early rush / mid game deck. I don't try to go late game. But if you're trying to play more conservative for your deck, this card is fantastic. This Terrible Tornado is also a 2-drop, so it fits in that nice spot. It's a 2-drop 3K. If on your front line, Hellish Blizzard cards cannot be chosen by your opponent's character or trigger abilities. So in the mirror, it stops color triggers, stops special triggers, so it protects our draw 2s. But most of the time, they're killing our 4Ks anyways, because this is our impactor, so they're killing this most of the time anyways. The only time you're really killing Blizzard is when the opponent has a whole bunch of cards in hand and you don't want them to keep using this effect. So that's why I'm not playing it. But if we move into a heavy removal format, or if like Byakuya from Purple Bleach, or an Ichigo deck, or any of the like heavy purple removal decks become way more popular, we might have to pivot into this. Now, this is a 3-drop Genos. That's a 2 energy generator. This is a color trigger you could play if you didn't want to play the Hellish Blizzard. It has Impact Negate. If we have a Saitama on our board, it's a 4K, so it's a 4K Impact Negate. But when it's sidelined, you get to choose one character and switch it active. So you use this to block Impact, and then you can restand our 10K Saitama. So then we have a 10K blocker. So this eats a body, and the Saitama eats a body. It's very, very good, but I don't like that it's our color trigger because I want to play our Hellish Blizzard color trigger. I just think this card does way too much for our deck, and it's way too good. The other Saitama we could be playing to pitch to the main Saitama has the same line of text, can't be removed from the field by your opponent's abilities. If on frontline at the end of your attack phase, move this character to energy line. But it is a 3-drop, 2 energy, 10K. Activate main, discard 1 card from your hand. Activate this only if your front line is not full. Move it to the front line. So you get to ditch a card from your hand and make a 10K attacker that turn. So you swing 10K and then he's going to move back to your energy line. So this is another way to threaten your opponent with just damage that can just be a card from your hand. Plus, when you pair it with our good Reject 2.0 One Punch, we can give that Saitama Impact 1. So we're like, hey, here's a 10K Impact 1. So give me your body or I'm taking a life regardless. Very good card. Lullaby Anto is playing a couple of it. He's trying this card out where my build does not have the Saitama because I want to focus more on the sisters and never want to whiff. Let's go. A lot of people are playing more than one. I'm just playing one of, as you saw. If you want to play a more control variant, Hailstorm is a okay card. It has a draw trigger, so like I said, when we want to keep a lot of cards in our hand, this is a card that does it. But you choose one resting character or one chump blocker, 1500 or less, and sideline it. So if you somehow hit a color trigger and their 5K is rested, this can kill it. Or if they have little chump blockers for the Saitama, you just go, cool, kill it. So this is removal in a very niche way. I just wish it, if this 15 said 25, probably would have played it. And then if you're playing like the Genos Saitama package, this site from the starter deck is crazy. This is a 2-drop site, Saitama's Apartment. When played, look at the top 4 cards. Look for a Saitama Genos King card among them. Add it to your hand. And it just does so much. So you don't have to discard. You just look for the 5-drop Saitama. You look for this Saitama. You look for this Genos. And another card that I didn't show is this King. This is another tech card people are playing. If you are playing the Saitama, this is actually a very good card. It's a 0-drop 5K, which means it's probably not getting removed. Draws you a card, but can't attack or block. So your opponents don't have to be scared of this card, but its other 2 effects, very strong. End of your attack phase, you can place him, if he's active, on the bottom of your deck to restand one of your Saitamas. So you can go to end of turn, Saitama doesn't untap, or end of turn, you King, put it to the bottom, Saitama doesn't untap, but then you pass turn, now Saitama untaps, so you can keep Saitama as a blocker. Or the activate main, which this one is very, very, like, this is where if Hellstorm was a 25, I might play it because this King is kind of like Hellstorm, but a little bit better. So activate main, if on frontline, switch it to resting once per turn. Choose one character in your opponent frontline with BP equal to or less than half of this character's BP. Switch it to resting. It remains set resting. Next time it would be set active. So it stuns them, right? So by itself, you can choose a 25K or less and stun it. Now, if you pair it with this, all right, now we're at 6K. Now we can target a 3K or less and stun it. So we can tap something down. pair it with this. So if we have this, we go to 7, and then this makes us 8 because we played an event. Now we can stun a 4K or less, which if it happens, it happens. But the fact that it gets to tap it down so you don't get the block of it, and the next time to return active it doesn't, very, very strong. Especially if like you're just trying to like play an aggro deck, like a red deck, like a red Ashford, red Garo, stuff like that, and you're like, oh, I'm going to get him with these 15s, I'm going to get him with these 2Ks, and this king just goes, nope, that thing's going to stay tapped down. It is brutal. But overall, I think these are good tech choices along with this king. Let me put one in here. These are good tech choices that you could be playing in the deck if you'd like to. Besides, like, Hellstorm's the one iffy part. Like, if you pair it with King and buffing King, Hellstorm's better. But overall, I'm happy with how our list came out. So, I want to go over our ratios one more time for us. So, 3 of our Get Tornado, 4 of each of the other 0 drops, 4 Blizzard, 4 Tornado, 4 Blizzard, 4 of each raid, 1 of our Tech Tornado. You can go up on these if you want to. If you feel like you don't need all these 2 energies, you can put it in, because we only need 4 energy. We rarely need the 5 energy. But when we do get the Saitama on the board, this applies a lot of pressure to our opponents. So I like to always keep a double energy in the back, possibly 2, so that way every card in our hand can just be played. 1 of Let's Go, 4 Esper Sisters, our best event in the deck, 4 Psychic Power, the special, 3 Finals, 1 I Merely Immobilized Them, 3 One Punch, aka Reject 2.0, best card ever, and then 1 Sight Blizzard Bunch. That is my list, and those are my thoughts on the Esper Sisters deck. I am totally excited to see where Esper Sisters goes and does in the North American format, and I'm always open to hear your guys' feedback or any questions you may have about the deck with me in matchups. I have played a lot of matchups into OPM, and I have played some off matchups with current meta stuff, so I'm still going to be testing and getting more data. I'm about 100 games in, and we're going to keep going as we see how far we can push Esper Sisters. And with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it may be for you guys watching this video. Have a wonderful day. Legit Vocals signing off.